Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. Annie in the chat says Ten Hag's tactics are too risky for the Prem. Remind me about that like you did the haircut yesterday. But this is the one, this is the one, this is the one. I'm bloody pumped up this morning. I'll tell you why, because lots to talk about in relation to United, but also it's the Formula One opening day and I'm doing a watch along on That's Football. I've left the link in the description. If you don't know what Formula One is, you need to know. The watch along this afternoon is going to be pumped. I'm pumped up for that one. I'm also pumped up for Manchester United as well. Lots to get into this morning. A big week ahead for United in relation to the manager. A big hint around a new director of football at Manchester United. Does that lead to Poch? Does it lead to Ten Hag? Does it lead to PSG? We'll have to talk about that as well. Also, 5 key senior players from Manchester United desperately want out of the club this summer. We'll be going through who those 5 people are. Some might say it's logical, but this is from a conversation I had last night. 5 key senior players of Manchester United want out of the club in the summer, and it would take almost a miracle to get even one of them to stay. So we'll talk about that as well. Also, developments around Manchester United Old Trafford and what is the most likely outcome in the expansion rebuild of Old Trafford. We'll talk about that as well. But I hope you're all doing well this morning. I nearly spat on my hoodie, but I'm feeling good. You know, is it because United aren't playing? You can't hurt us. You can't. I'm like Batfink. My wings are like a shield of steel. You cannot hurt me if you don't play. And I don't think I've been this buzzing on a Sunday morning for a long time. And United aren't playing. I like the politics. I like the politics of Manchester United. I do. I don't know what sort of accent that is, but I like the politics of United. I like to think about the manager. I like to think about stadium rebuilds. I like to think about squad rebuilds. It probably won't happen. They constantly disappoint us, but we need the rebuild. I don't need to see United get stuffed by Liverpool this afternoon, which is what would have happened. So I actually feel quite positive, and I'm hoping over the next week it's going to be really important. The next 5 days is really key for the appointment of the manager. We'll delve into that in a little bit, but there's people sort of putting stuff out there, like I heard David Ornstein this morning say we'll get a conclusion soon. There's also other people saying this week is really important, and I don't want to demean those people because they're probably very good sources, but I tell you what, if I walk outside and it's pissing it down with rain, I can say if I walk outside I'm probably going to get wet. And next week is quite clearly the big week because Ajax have got a massive game at lunchtime today against Feyenoord in the title race. They don't play again for 2 weeks. Same with PSG. Next week, players will be coming back from international duty, preparing for the weekend fixture after that. This week is a week off. This is the week. It's logical. Nobody's told me this. It's just very logical that this week is the week that United will be speaking to their managers. I'll talk to you about which players want out in a minute, Daniel. Thank you very much for getting involved in there. But let's start off with the big headline, Rangnick's new director of football. So, Paul Mitchell, you may know him from EastEnders. No, that's Phil Mitchell. Get out of my pub. Anyway, Paul Mitchell, brother of Phil, less violent and prone to overacting. Paul Mitchell is a very well-renowned sporting director of football, head of development person. Started out at MK Dons, went to Southampton, where he worked under Poch, went with Poch to Spurs, left there whilst Poch was still there, to be honest. Some people think that they fell out. I don't know whether he fell out with Poch. I certainly think he fell out with Daniel Levy. And then I think he went Leipzig, where he worked with Rangnick, and then he went to Monaco, where he's going to leave Monaco. That's the big story. He's leaving Monaco by mutual consent. This came out last night. Well, 2 weeks ago, he was sat next to Rangnick sharing a bag of crisps, watching the youth team. Do you want some of my crisps? No, I'm all right. So, where does this lead to Manchester United? If he does come to Manchester United, is he coming to United because of his relationship with Rangnick, or is he coming to United because he's going to work with Pochettino? Very interesting. Manchester United, I know about the David Ornstein thing, Paul. If you tuned in on time, you'd know what I said 2 minutes ago, that basically the next few days are key for Manchester United appointing a manager, which is basically what David Ornstein said. And to be honest, I think my dog would tell me that the next week is very important for Manchester United's appointment. We've been saying it on here for 3 weeks. This next week is the most obvious week for United to sort their manager out, because it's the only week where no manager, unless they're an international coach, has got something to do. So I'm not going to take my top off, run around my garden with my GoPro live going, we're getting a manager next week, because it's the most obvious week ever. Deputy director, whilst having much more experience than Murta at that level, it's honestly criminal how little we value expertise at this club, says Dan. Well, yes, Dan is right. Thanks for the super chat, Dan. United have put it out there for probably the last month that they're looking for another director of football to work under Murta. That's meant to be Darren Fletcher's job. But look, I know for a fact that people in that football club who are pretty well listened to don't think Darren Fletcher's up to the job at the moment. And that's not a criticism of Fletcher. He's learning on the job. Everyone likes Darren Fletcher at the club, but he's learning on the job. He's enthusiastic, but he's got no CV. They want to bring somebody in to work with Murta and Fletcher and hopefully Rangnick in that area to revitalise Manchester United's recruitment, because the Glazers have spent £1 billion in the last 9 years. And whatever you say about the Glazers, that £1 billion may as well have been chucked on a bonfire. If they spend another $1 billion in the next 10 years, they want that to show reward. And when you look at somebody like a Mitchell, what he did at Southampton, the players they had there, the players that he brought in at Spurs. I mean, look, Dele Alli's not that good now, but he brought him in. He brought in Trippier, I think Alderweireld, Son, Leipzig, obviously. I think Mukail is one of his as well. There's a couple of others. Monaco, Tchouaméni brought in as well. There are others there. So he's got a very, very good pedigree. And he's got a very good relationship with Ralph Rangnick. And he has left or is leaving Monaco. So I would look, regardless of his relationship with Pochettino, he was sat next to Rangnick 2 weeks ago. He worked with Rangnick at Leipzig. That's where he left Spurs to go. He is one of the best sporting directors, head of developments in world football. He's a Manchester lad, and I think this is the sort of thing that Manchester United should be doing. So, look, I think that's definitely... Wouldn't be surprised if we get a surprise manager, says Tyler Cole. So, look, I like this sort of conversation. Some of you probably want me to tell you about we're going to sign Haaland, which isn't going to happen. And I know some of our fans are like that. But the actual rebuild of the football club interests me because it's the most important thing to do. We could spend £200 million on Mbappe. It wouldn't make a blind bit of difference next season. But bringing the right manager in and people like Paul Mitchell will bear fruit in the next 2 years because he's got the CV to do it. So I hope it's going to happen. He's got a good relationship with Rangnick. But what I would say is, just don't write off the fact, and some people might take this as a positive, PSG are going to get rid of their director of football in Leonardo. If PSG keep Pochettino, they might bring Mitchell in there. I can't see PSG keeping Pochettino, but maybe that's an option for him. Patrick, thank you very much for welcome to the Members Club. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with Paul Mitchell, but this is the guy who revolutionised Southampton, Spurs, Leipzig, Monaco. He's now available. He's one of the best, and I think he would be a really, really, really good appointment for United. Whether that would lead to Pochettino, I think you'd be foolish not to think it would. He has worked with Pochettino at Spurs and at Southampton, so that could be something. And look, the cynic in me says, is this United trying to manipulate the fan base again? We know the vast majority of the fan base want Ten Hag. If you bring Paul Mitchell in, it's a good appointment, and then you go, well, they work to get well together, and people will go, well, it is Mitchell and Poch, so maybe it's not that bad. So maybe that angle, I don't know. I don't know. I don't actually know whether we're going to get Paul Mitchell, and I don't know whether that would lead to Pochettino. You could also say it's more about his relationship working with Rangnick, and Rangnick has recommended him for the job. That I don't think Rangnick wants Pochettino, so it could be Rangnick saying get Mitchell, and it could be nothing to do with that. Ultimately, it would be a very good appointment, and I think you've just got to take it on that. If it leads to Pochettino, well, I don't agree with that, but I still think that Paul Mitchell is a good appointment. We are leaping ahead a little bit, but I don't believe in coincidence. So why was he sat next to Ralph Rangnick 3 weeks ago watching a Youth Cup match? At the time, I was just having a bit of a break, wanted to share a bag of crisps with Ralph. And he's a very sharing person, especially with a big bag of crisps. And he's from Manchester, seeing family. Oh, what? Okay, 3 weeks later, he's leaving Monaco. So I suspect there is something going on there. I hope there's something going on there. But I would say just be very careful about it, because maybe the PSG role with Poch might happen. It could be him and Poch at Man United, though. If Mitchell goes director of football, what does that mean for Ralph, says Charlie Griffiths? Well, I think what United want to do is... Murta will stay as director of football. I think he needs support, which he can't get from Fletcher because he's inexperienced. I mean, if Murta says I'm busy today, I'm looking at the midfielder area. Can you go and sort out striker, Darren? What's he going to go? Well, there was this lad at Stoke. Forget about it. I'll do it myself. Do you know anybody in football? Not yet, I'm learning. So I think that's what they want. I think they want to bring somebody in that can support Murta on a day-to-day basis, but also develop Fletcher. And also, Fletcher might end up being a coach. God knows what he's going to be. I don't know what Fletcher's role is. So I think they do want to bring in somebody to work with Murta on a higher level. And this was leaked about a month ago. In relation to Rangnick, Rangnick's a consultant. So I don't think Rangnick would ever be day-to-day, in-depth, working under Murta. I think Rangnick's more an overseer. And that's what he did for the Red Bull Group. He was an overseer. He oversees the project with his experience. So I would have Murta as the director of football, Mitchell working alongside him, and then Rangnick as the consultant who assists in the rebuild, and Fletcher learning on the job. And that I'd be very happy with that. I would be very happy with that. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what happens with it. But as I said, I don't believe in coincidence. He was sat with Rangnick 3 weeks ago. He's now leaving Monaco, and whether it leads to Pochettino or not, we'll have to wait and see. On the managerial situation, by the way, I just must go back to that chat. This next week is key. I don't know why it's breaking news. It's logical news. It's slow sports news. Slow sports news. Yellow tie. Audi driver. Crunchy nut cornflakes still stuck in my teeth from this morning. Manchester United will be talking to a manager this week. It's slow sports news. Of course we're going to talk to a manager this week. It's the only week a manager's got off. After next week, they'll be training their teams again for title races. This week is key. It's not breaking news. Somebody might know who we're talking to. That will become breaking news. It will become breaking news if we're talking to Ten Hag tomorrow. But we're going to be talking to our next manager this week, 100%. Because if we're not, we're completely incompetent. Just watch the Spurs game again. Rashi actually did loads of defending and inceptions. Would get a bad press with no options. Look for the overlap, but Delo cuts in and is more available, says Bjorn. There we go. Big fan of Rashford. Very exciting times ahead for United, says Rory Jennings. Rory, if that's the real Rory, you're taking the piss, Rory. Don't be taking the piss on a Sunday morning. I don't know whether he's taking the piss or not. Is it very exciting times for Manchester United? I tell you what it's like. It's like Christmas Day morning. You've hinted you want a PS5. The box looks like it could be a PS5. Very exciting times. But we don't know what box we're opening. We could open that box and have a PS5. Ten Hag. Very exciting times ahead. Step in the right direction. That could happen. We could open up that box and it's a microwave. What am I going to do with that? But the way he waits for the ball instead of attacking or just wait for the ball, Fred is really good at the pass, says Bjorn. Okay, Bjorn's turning this show into a tactical personal show. It's the Bjorn show, who's going to tactically analyse the Spurs game and completely ignore the fact that we lost to Atletico Madrid. Thanks, Bjorn. But put the ball out for a corner or throw in because he's alone in the... Oh, Bjorn, okay, stop your super chats, Bjorn. I'm not reading them out anymore. You can't take over a morning show with your tactical analysis of individual players that realistically no one really cares about. So I'm going to stop you there. Don't do it anymore. Right, let's move on with the show. So in relation to Ten Hag, somebody said at the start of the show, Ten Hag's style of football won't work in the Premier League. It's too risky. I just wanted to go through Ten Hag's CV just so that people know what his CV is in relation to his background. So Ten Hag was recruited as Bayern Munich's reserve team coach by Pep Guardiola. I think it was between 2013 and 2015. He has literally said his management style, whilst he had it before, has been moulded by the genius of Pep Guardiola. Who is the greatest manager in the Premier League at the moment? Well, it's either Klopp or Pep. And Ten Hag spent 2 years as a reserve team coach under Pep Guardiola at Bayern Munich. He's then gone on. He then was it? I always get this mixed up. Did he manage? Who did he manage after he left Bayern Munich? Was it Utrecht or is that the other way? Was that the club before Bayern Munich? Anyway, I think he took them to fourth, which was unheard of at the time. And then he got the Ajax job. So Ten Hag's 52. He's not bloody Nagelsmann. He has had a career learning from people. So I think that to say that Ten Hag's style of football won't work in the Premier League, he's not just a Dutch coach that's come through the Ajax system. He actually spent 2 years at Bayern Munich working under Pep Guardiola. So his CV is really good. People will say, well, Poch's CV is very good, and it is. Southampton, Spurs, PSG, whatever. But already had a fridge, probably a microwave next, says Raza. And Bjorn says, sorry, I couldn't send it all in one show, and the head-to-heads are amazing. Love from Sweden. No worries. Bjorn is the Fred of Super Chat, says Butterpants. Bjorn likes Fred. So there we go. Fair play to Bjorn. He loves the show anyway. But yeah. So look, Ten Hag's. I'm not. What I'm trying to say, and I should have said it in a short way, is I'm not getting dragged into the whole Ten Hag's football's too risky for the Prem. Spent 2 years working under Pep Guardiola. Arteta's done quite well, hasn't he? Ding ding! You knew it! You knew it! You knew it! Whoa! You knew it! You knew it! You knew I was going to do it, and I did it. You didn't see it coming, did you? You didn't see it coming what I was going to do. What coach spent time working under Pep Guardiola that's doing well in the Premier League at the moment, having rebuilt the football club? It's right. It's Mikel Arteta. Ten Hag spent 2 years working with Pep Guardiola. We need a rebuild. He's the right man to get for the job. You knew I was going to do it. Look, I don't like Arsenal. I really hope they mess it up, but I don't think they are going to mess it up. I think they've got consistency. I think they've got a spine. I think they've got structure. It's about the players. It's about the structure, and they have got it. They've got consistency, structure, chemistry, drive, system, future. I can look at that Spurs. I can look at that. Arteta, says Jack. I can look at that Arsenal side and say it's doing well, but I can also say they're definitely going to get a striker in the summer. So look, I'm not buying into this Ten Hag's a risk thing. Of course he's a risk. Everybody's a risk. But let's not get snobby about, he's only managed Ajax. He has done other things. Paul says, if I had to tactically analyse the Middlesbrough game, only joking, Mark, if you had 5 years at United to rebuild, what would you do? It doesn't matter whether I've got 5 years, whether Paul's got 5 years, whether Ten Hag's got 5 years. It doesn't really matter how long you've got. It's like the old adage, isn't it? It's not how long you play. It's not how long you're on this planet. It's what you do with the time that you've got. Some people live till they're 100. Some people live till they're 40. But the people who live till they're 40 do more than that person who lived to 100. Time is irrelevant if you don't do something with it. So what I would say, Paul, is what would I do if I was Manchester United manager? Well, it would be dictated to by the people above me. I can't walk into that club and say, sell Harry Maguire. I can't walk into the club and say, don't buy Declan Rice, buy Tchouaméni so I can get a striker. If they've decided that's what they want to do, they want to keep that player, they want to buy that player, my hands are tied. And I've been saying this for probably 8 years. Visibly, okay, you can't see it, but logically, every Man United manager we've had, from Moyes to Rangnick, has had their hands tied. The evidence is there. That first summer for Moyes, look, we never should have appointed Moyes, but the first summer was a joke. An absolute joke. Players were promised and we ended up with Fellaini. Van Gaal, again. Mourinho, again. Ollie, well, he probably just smiled and didn't care anyway, to be honest, but his hands were tied, and Rangnick's hands have been tied. If you're a manager at Manchester United and your hands are tied, you're finished. So it's not about what you can do in 5 years, it's not about what you can do in 5 months. If your hands are free and you've got control to manage, then I think change will happen at United. Basically, in a sentence, since Sir Alex Ferguson, nobody's been allowed to manage that football club. There's been people above who've dictated to the manager. That's not management. You can't do it. And that is why at Brighton, a pretty small, unfashionable club, Brighton really have been more successful than bigger clubs than them over the last few years, relatively speaking, because you'd expect Brighton to be in the Championship. But they've got a system there that allows Potter to manage recruitment, players, removing players. If sometimes it's not about the trophies you win, it's about the success you have relative to your size. Brighton's success, even though they've lost a few recently, they're still punching way above their weight. Why are Brighton successful for their size? If you turned Brighton into Manchester United, that success would be winning trophies. So I said yesterday we can learn things from Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City on how they've behaved over the last few years to rebuild or whatever. But you can also learn things from teams like Brighton, because they are punching above their weight as well. I guarantee the running theme through all those clubs is the manager has got control to make big decisions. And at United, we take that away. Would you take Ten Hag over Zidane? I wouldn't, says Rory. I would take... if you'd asked me 5 months ago, I'd have laughed and said I'll take Zidane. I think right now, I would take Conte over Zidane. So I would take Ten Hag over Zidane, yeah. I like Zidane. 3 Champions Leagues in a row is absolutely fantastic. Is Zidane the man to rebuild a football club like Manchester United? I don't think he is. I think this is a very specific job. And I don't think Zidane... look at Zidane. He's a great manager. I'll never listen to people who say, well, he had prime Ronaldo, this, that and the other. You've still got to go and win it. And win it 3 years in a row is unbelievable. But he did have Casemiro, Modric, Kroos. He did have Benzema, Ronaldo, Bale. He did have Ramos, Varane. And a very good goalkeeper as well. He had a ridiculously good spine in place. And he got the best out of it. You don't have a spine at United. You've got Jelly Babies. Jelly Babies FC. So I think that I would go for the manager that's proven track record of building clubs over the superstar manager. Morning, Mark. Love the stand-up show. Hilarious. I know it's a bit bleak time to support Man United, but you need to try and find excitement from somewhere. This is football, says Chris. And why not give the director role to Rangnick and appoint a few under him and bring in Ten Hag? I think that would be exciting for a rebuild, thought, says Mohammed. Well, it could happen, Mohammed. We'll have to just wait and see. Anyway, 5 players have demanded to leave Manchester United this summer. Well, they haven't demanded yet, but 5 players are looking to leave Manchester United this summer. And they won't be changing their minds. Now, this was from a conversation I had with somebody last night. It was on WhatsApp, to be fair. It wasn't a phone call. And ultimately, you might not be surprised by some of these players. But let me just read the 5 players out. There may be more players who want to go. Logically, there will be. But these 5... it would take a turnaround of unbelievable proportions to keep them at United next season. So I'll give you the 5 names: Paul Pogba, Jesse Lingard, Eric Bailly, Anthony Martial, Dean Henderson. Obviously Cavani's going. We don't even include Cavani in a matchday squad, so I'm not even going to include him in that. So 5 players: Pogba, Lingard, Martial, Henderson, and Bailly. 5 players, all differing fortunes this season, all differing values in the summer, all adamantly leaving Manchester United in the summer unless something miraculous happens. Well, obviously with Lingard, what was the point? Why? He's not happy. Look at what's happening at Newcastle. He could have been playing in that Newcastle team like he was playing in the West Ham team, forcing himself back into the England squad and basically sat on his arse, not getting any game time. He wants out. He's free. Pogba's different. I think Pogba, if we had the prospect of winning Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues, we might be able to keep him, but the club's a mess. He doesn't need another rebuild, and he's free, so that's not a surprise. Eric Bailly has had it to the back teeth. Logically, it's been leaked by people before already. Cannot understand why he doesn't get game time. Doesn't profess to be the world's best centre-back, but week in, week out is watching a centre-back perform worse than a championship centre-back and doesn't get game time. His career has basically been put on hold. The club basically conned him into signing a new contract. Solskjaer promised him first-team football. He never got it. It was just about protecting and preserving his value. He wants out. Martial wants out. Rangnick spoke to him in January about staying and giving him game time. Basically, he said, with all due respect, it's not your fault, but I just don't feel like I've been treated well at this club. I want to go. And Dean Henderson, again, lost a year of his career. When he was on loan at Sheffield United, it was looking promising. It was looking that by now he'd be England's goalkeeper for the World Cup and maybe even Man United's first-team goalkeeper. Neither of those things are anywhere near his grasp. He has to play first-team football. So 5 players adamantly want out of United in the summer. Could it change for any of them? I don't think it will. I really don't think it will. I still think that there are this cult of fans that like Dean Henderson and think he should be our goalkeeper because he can pass the ball better. But as I said, David De Gea this season, he's probably factually saved us about 12 points. We'd be down with Villa if it wasn't for David De Gea. So what would that distribution have done? I don't think Dean Henderson would have made the saves that David De Gea made, because I think David De Gea is one of the best shot stoppers in the world. Would the distribution have been better? Yes, but he's still passing it to Fred or McTominay. It's not like, what would it do? And I also think that if United did want to change De Gea, I think they'd go for a better goalkeeper than Dean Henderson. So I think he needs to leave, really. and obviously Eric Bailly as well. And Martial, look, the only thing that's going to change it is if a new manager comes in and says, Eric, you're my starting centre-back, and Tony, I want to play you every week. That sort of thing might make them stay, but even then, I just can't see it happening. Biggie Third, correct your statement from four videos ago that Poch doesn't work well with Director of Footballs. He works with Mitchell at Spurs and Southampton, or is it propaganda, says Biggie Third. I don't do propaganda, Biggie, and just doing a super chat doesn't allow you to try and fail in undermining my opinion. My opinion will always be my opinion, and it's open to interpretation and it's open to be challenged. That's the whole point of having a fan community. However, I will not be undermined by you trying to make out that I'm using propaganda against Pochettino, because you know what you're doing, Biggie? You've shoved your head up the Pochettino Spurs arse and you've not removed it, and you're living in the past, mate. You need to remove your head from Spurs Pochettino, wake up and see the light. He got sacked from Spurs. I think Mitchell left Spurs in 2016, so that's 6 years ago. You're talking about him working with Mitchell 6, 7, 8 years ago. He left Spurs. Pochettino then got sacked by Spurs and has had a very unhappy relationship working with Leonardo as his Director of Football. So you can say he works well with the Director of Football. I can say he doesn't work well with the Director of Football. He probably, the truth is, he probably works well with Paul Mitchell, and that is where I would concede if he comes to United. Maybe United are looking to reunite them together, but they haven't worked together for 6 years. Why are we living in the past? Let's live in the future. Okay. Also, we've got this board has tried to brainwash Rangnick. The bad coaching decisions, cover-ups, lies and interviews. Nothing's changed since Fergie left. Sad, really, since Rangnick's done his best. Loving the show, Mark, says Thomas. I feel bad for Henderson. He's not as good as De Gea, but he's much better than Pickford and should be England #1. Butterpants, Henderson's got to blame himself. He should have got out of that club. Should have got out last summer. He's wasted 2 years of his career. Reports mention that Mitchell, due to Poch and Levy, he felt undermined by both with little to no control due to Poch in the later years, says Dan. There you go. Sit down, Biggie Third. I don't know. There's a lot of people that say that Mitchell and Poch fell out. I don't know the politics of that at Spurs. I always thought it was about Levy. Isn't there a genuine possibility for Martial to stay? We have lost the forward to unique circumstances and Cavani will leave. Surely he plays more. No, Lil, because if you listen to what I said and what was said by Martial himself this week, Martial this week said Rangnick sat him down and said there will be opportunities for him to play a lot more football, and Martial said, I don't want to stay, I want to go and play week in, week out somewhere else. So Martial's basically had enough. It's not that he's not been promised an opportunity, it's not like he's not been told, you know, you can win a place. He just doesn't want that place anymore. He wants a change, and that's going to be very difficult to change. I think the only prospect of Martial staying at United is if a manager sits him down and says, look, I want to play you every week. Maybe he'll change his mind then. But as I said, I don't see that happening. And I think the most important thing to talk about those 5 players as well is that we talk about, and we can basically work it out. I think if we get in the Champions League, we'll spend 60 to 80 million pounds. I think if we're in the Europa League, we'll spend 80 to 100 million pounds. And I mean, that's the budget. That's the money that's available now. So if we're in the Champions League, I think it'll be 60 to 80. If we're in the Europa League, I think it'll be 80 to 100. And any subsequent signings will have to be from generated income from sales. Well, you're getting nothing from Lingard, you're getting nothing from Pogba. Martial, it's hard to say with Martial. A few years ago, I think you could have got 60 million. Now, might be able to push it to 40. So 40 for Martial if we're lucky. Henderson, maybe 20. That's 60 million. Bailly, 15. 75 million. I mean, look, if you get 75 million from Martial, Bailly and Henderson, add it to the 100 million or 80 million that we've got, you're still 150 million quid to spend, isn't it? And I think if the new manager can work with a budget of about 150 million quid, it's not a bad start. What would I do with that 150 million? I'd want 4 players. So I'm looking to buy players around the 40 million mark, really, on it. Four 40 million pound players. If you can get one a little bit cheaper and one's a bit more, but you need about 160 million this summer to buy 4 players. And we can do that. If the budget for the club is 80 and we can make 75 on sales, then we've got 150 million quid. Yeah, so I think it can work. 15 million for Martial, 40 million for Martial is pushing it, says Keenan. I think Martial's a really difficult player to put a value on because there's people in the chat saying you'll get 15, 20, but that's just Sunday morning petulance and stupidity. Like, you need to wake up and smell the coffee. Get the kettle on, because it's like Ben White went for 50 million quid from Brighton. He's a centre back. Strikers score your goals. Goals win your games. We will get 30 to 40 million for Martial. We'll get. He's got a long contract. The problem is, I would say you might get 50 for him, but his wages are going to be a massive problem. He's on 200 grand a week. That's going to be the problem that's going to push his price down. But strikers are always going to go for more. And I do think that we would get 30, 40 million for Martial. I do. I really, really do. But we'll see. I can't be bothered this morning to get into arguments with children about, no, you won't. Yes, I will. No, I won't. Yes, you will. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that, because Martial is going to be a very interesting player. Okay, so there's a tweet coming in from L'Equipe here saying that Mauricio Pochettino wants to stay at PSG but calls for alignment in ideas, project, methods between his staff and the club. That's that. You know what that looks like to me? That looks like a cry to help. I mean, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are, Poch? He wants to stay at PSG but wants alignment in ideas, project and methods. I mean, that would be like Mourinho just before he was sacked, or Ollie just before he was sacked doing a statement. I want to stay at Manchester United. I know we got smacked up by Watford. I want to stay. I just want alignment on ideas, project and culture. But I want Karaki. Come in, Karaki. We want Karaki. We want to stay at Manchester United, but we want alignment on ideas, culture and structure. Thanks, that is all. Bye. Like, it's a sacked manager. Pochettino is a sacked manager. He's been embarrassed by Real Madrid. He can't put a statement out saying, I want to stay, but the club needs to sort itself out. He's the manager. So, again, I don't read anything into that at all. There'll be some sort of spin behind that statement from Pochettino. Maybe he's trying to make himself appear as a viable option to people. But I mean, if PSG don't sack him, I'll be stunned. PSG are ruthless. He didn't win the French League last year. They gave him another season. He's been knocked out in the Champions League last 16. This is what people forget about Pochettino. He bottled the French League last year, and they gave him this year, and now he's bottled the Champions League, and he thinks he's going to get another year. I think 100% they're going to sack him. I really do. But this next 5 days will be key. I don't know which way it's going to go. I want it to go the Ten Hag way. It wouldn't be surprised me if we went the Pochettino way and the club make a massive mistake. The next 5 days are going to be huge. If you think, oh, it's an international break, it's going to be quiet, it's not. This next few days around the manager is going to be very, very, very noisy, and we'll wait and see what happens. Thomas says, thoughts on the Grand... But Ajax have got a game today at lunchtime, so I wouldn't expect anything around Ten Hag to be until early next week. Thomas says, thoughts on the GP today. Thought I'd also say you do a cracking job day in, day out with the team on the show. You and the team should be proud. Thanks, Thomas. We have got the 8 o'clock show tonight as well, the forum, which I'm looking forward to. And I'll come back to that question. Morning, Mark. According to you, what's the most important position United can improve in the summer? Says Div. Well, I'd like the chat to know. I'd like to know what the most important position is for the chat. I don't do TUSFC on the weekend, Axe. If you watch TUSFC on Twitter, on Twitch, you know it's Monday to Friday. I've never played TUSFC on a Saturday or a Sunday. So the fact that you know what it is, but then you're asking me about it, really messes with my head, because I've never played it on a Saturday or a Sunday. It's always Monday to Friday. CDM is the position that's coming out massively from the chat, and I would agree with you all. Applause. I would applaud you. I applaud and bow down to thee. I believe that a CDM is what we need at Manchester United. And I applaud thee. Here, here, here. I do agree with you on that. But you know what the most important position is, really? It's the manager. It's the manager. I would love a scenario. This is my dream scenario for Manchester United, okay? So I appoint Ten Hag as the manager. I appoint Paul Mitchell as the Director of Football with Murta and Rangnick as the consultant. Where's Paul Mitchell come from, and who did he sign at Monaco? Tchouaméni. Tchouaméni comes in as your CDM. That, for me, anywhere we go after that, whether it's Nunez as a striker and Kunku, wherever we go after that, Anthony from Ajax, Wherever we go from that, that would be the dream start for me. Ten Hag as the manager. Mitchell comes in to work with Murta and Rangnick. We signed Tchouaméni from Monaco, which is Mitchell's previous club. That would be the perfect start, because I've got the manager I want, I've got a really good person to work in as with the director of football, and I've got a CDM, which I think is a better fit for United than Rice. Rice is going to use up so much of our budget. There's going to be a lot more pressure on Rice as well. What people never talk about is, in the Rice versus Tchouaméni argument, whether you're Chelsea, Man City, United, because they all want one of those players, I believe. Whoever you get out of those, which is the better fit for United? What we don't need is hype and bullshit. If we get Declan Rice, oh, it's another English superstar coming to United. Look at him holding up the shirt. Get your Declan Rice shirt now. I think Declan Rice is a really good player, and I think he could live up to the hype. But I'd rather we got Tchouaméni, where people go, that's a lot of letters if you want it on your shirt. You're not getting that. We don't know much about him. Let's go and talk about Chelsea's signing. I think Tchouaméni fits with United because not a lot of people know a lot about him. And we need to bring 3 or 4 players in like that. I don't think we need a superstar signing this summer. I don't think we need a hype signing this summer. Thanks for the content, Mark, says Emily. It's been keeping me happy while off work. Firmly believe that United need to speculate to accumulate and go with Ten Hag and Mitchell. I want to see proactive thinking. Thank you very much, Emily. Yeah, we do need a striker, Tony. We need a CDM. We need a striker. I think we need another centre-back. And ultimately, I want them all to be as exciting as the other one. I don't want a superstar CDM and then a half-decent CDM and half-decent centre-back and a striker. It's about consistency through the team. Just want to talk to you as well, stadium. I mean, I'm sort of ignoring a lot of this stadia talk. There are ex-players and other outlets who just seem to want to make a big deal out of this. Boring, really not that interested, because any stadium rebuild is going to take years, and ultimately it should have been done years ago. And I do think it's a bit of a distractor as well. Why every day am I seeing stories about the stadium? I'm like, and why now? Is it because we've been knocked out of the Champions League and it's a positive? Building a stadium or renovating Old Trafford is a positive news story. What happened a few days ago? A very big negative story. So why are we now getting stadium talk? It's almost like they keep these things back in the safe. Oh, get that story about the stadium out. The fan base is pissed off. I'm not stupid. I know exactly what this is all about. Building the stadium is going to take bloody ages. So why is it coming out a few days after the Atletico Madrid loss? Because it's one they've got in the bank to spin a positive. So I'm not massively interested in the stadium. But I will say this. The stadium that they're looking to build is the one where the players come out, where the dugout is. That's the stadium they're looking to build. It's the smallest of the 3, and that is the most likely. That is the most likely project. It's the one that the fans want, and I think it's the cheaper one, and I think it's the one the club will go through as well. And it's the right one. It's the right thing to do. And they need to build it big. The current capacity of Old Trafford is 75,000. They need to get an extra 10,000 seats in there. We need to be an 85,000 capacity stadium. You don't spend 400 million renovating that stand to make it 80,000. We need to go up by 10,000, whatever we do. And if they do that, that's the right thing to do. Yeah. So I'm looking at that one section of Old Trafford being renovated, built upon, and another 10,000 seats, and that should be what happens. Gary Neville wants the stadium rebuild so that the club can buy out his hotel football, says Rob Isaac. Sunshine, Gary Neville. I don't want that. I don't know why you're saying that. What are you talking about? I don't. I'm gonna get Phil. Fuck Phil and Grant. Phil and Gary. It's Phil and Gary. It's Phil and Gary Neville. Kick the shit out of Phil and Grant Mitchell. But. No, I mean, look, Gary Neville's got every right to say that if he wants the stadium to be knocked down. I've heard people like, listen up, controversial take, I'd knock it down and build a new stadium. Well done. That you've found the word opinion in the dictionary. Well done. Stand your ground. I don't want Old Trafford to be knocked down. I watched old VHS tapes when I used to get in from school with my granddad. And we'd be watching the story of Man United or whatever, and those old grainy black and white pictures of Old Trafford. And, you know, go and get one of those videos or DVDs or however you watch stuff these days of Old Trafford in the late 50s and the 60s and look at it on the black and white pictures. You can see it. you can still see the shape of it. All right, it's been renovated, it's been modernised, but you can still see it. You can still see what Old Trafford's about, and that to me is really important. Who we are, where we came from. I don't want that ground to be knocked down and built up again. I know Spurs have done a good job with theirs, you know, on roughly on the same area as White Hart Lane. But I've seen them do it at Wembley, and that's not the Wembley I used to go to in the early 90s. That Wembley's very different. They could build it on the same place, but it's not got the same feel. And I just think we should try to do what they've done at the Bernabeu, what they've done at the Nou Camp, which is keep your heritage and try and keep it familiar. But that's just my personal opinion. Terminating Maguire's contract is most important, says Callum. That's never going to happen, Callum. And Dwell says, off topic, I saw your stand-up part 2 today, and I really admire how bold and honest you are in this era of content creators with a million filters. Thanks, Dwell. Thanks everyone who did watch my stand-up show, actually. You can check it out on my channel, Mark Goldbridge, or just put in Goldbridge's stand-up part 2. But look, I've enjoyed the show this morning. I'm feeling quite pumped up anyway because we've got a big day ahead. We have got the 8 o'clock show tonight, and obviously if anything breaks, we will go live. But I'm a big fan of F1. 2:30 today for a 3 o'clock race start on That's Football. I've left the link in the video description. It's open. The live chat's open. I'm buzzing for that, so you can tune in for that. Very excited. And then straight after that, I'm live again on That's Football for. I'll be keeping an eye on Spurs against West Ham, which is a big game in the top 4 race. But also Forest against Liverpool in the FA Cup final. I'm really hoping Forest can do us a favour because Liverpool at the moment are still on course for a quadruple. Somebody's got to knock them out somewhere. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure to tune in for the F1. I've left the link in the description for that. And we'll see you a little bit later on the channel. Have a good day, whatever you're doing. Speak very soon. Take care.